Chapter 12, Section 2 in the 8th grade workbook is entitled Slope of a Line. Let's go ahead and go through some homework problems here. We'll go ahead and take a look at number 1 and 2. In 1 and 2, the idea is identical. We're finding the slope of the line. I'm going to go ahead and do number 2 with you because we did a lot of questions like number 1 in the notes today. So in number 2, we want to go ahead and do just like we did though in those notes. We want to go ahead and label a couple points that go through grid markers here. So I see this point here that goes through 0, 2. That's a good one. And then I see this point here that's going through 3, 0. That's also a pretty good one. And so I want to go ahead and find the rise and the run of what connects those points. So looking at the rise here, remember we're always going to go from left to right. The rise is actually going to make me go down 2 units, which means the rise here is actually going to be -2. Remember, if we go up, it's positive. If we go down, it's negative. Now I got to figure out how many points I got to move to the right to figure out the run to get me my final slope. Well, I'm going to end up going 1, 2, 3 units to the right, so the run is 3, and my slope then is -2/3. All right, let's go ahead and continue on and take a look at the next set of questions here, 3 through 10. Now in 3 through 10, you're finding the slope of the line that connects those points here. So what we want to do is go ahead and use the formula that we've already seen here. Remember, the formula for finding slope given 2 points says take the y values and subtract them, take the x values and subtract them in the same order, and then divide those 2 values, or write it as a ratio if you want me to say it that way, and simplify, and that will equal your slope. So let's go ahead and try that with number 3 here. We've got -2, -8, and 1, 4. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to subtract the y values. So I'm going to do 4 minus -8. And of course that's going to end up changing into a 12. And I'm going to subtract the x values in the same order. Notice I'm going right to left here. So I'm going to do 1 minus -2. And that's going to end up changing into 3. So I end up with 12 over 3, or 4. Now some people might ask, well, wait a minute, what if I didn't go in that order? Does it matter? Well, let's check it out and find out what happens here. Let's say instead I go from left to right. So I'm going to take the difference of the y values here and do -8 minus 4, which is -12. And then I'm going to subtract the x values here. I'm going to do -2 minus 1. -2 minus 1 is -3. Well, notice when I take -12 and divide it by -3, the result is still 4, or 4 over 1. So it doesn't really matter in which order you do these problems, you're still going to come up with the same answer. The one thing you can't do is you can't mix and match. If I start off with my y values going this way, then my x values also have to be calculated this way. I can't do y values subtract going this way and then x values subtract going this way. When I mix and match, then I am going to come up with an incorrect answer there. Let's try that again with question number 5. In question number 5, again, start off and find the difference in the y values. So I'm going to do 4 minus 4. 4 minus 4 is going to go down to 0. Then I'm going to do the difference in the x values. 4 minus 0. 4 minus 0, that's going to change into 4. So the slope here is 0 over 4. Now you don't really want to change this into just 0, right? Because that's not going to really mean what you think it means or what I don't think you'll think it means. Slope of 0 over 4 indicates that the line is never going to rise, but the line is going to have a run. So when you have a top number of 0 and the bottom number is any number here that's not 0, 0 over 4 in this case, right, where I'm not going to rise, but I'm going to run 4, that's going to be a line that runs left to right, or in other words, a horizontal line. And you can graph those 2 points, and you'll see that 0, 4, 4, 4 is indeed a horizontal line. I can go grab it right up here, actually. Here's 4, 4, and here's 0, 4. When I connect those points, as you can see, that is indeed a horizontal line. Let's try one more, number 6. Again, start off, subtract the y values. So I'm going to do -4 minus -6. Minus a negative is going to change into plus, of course, so that's going to equate to 2. And then the x values, 2 minus 3. 2 minus 3 is going to change into negative 1. So the slope here is 2 over negative 1. Of course, that means that that value would equate to something negative. 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. That's going to be a line that tips down like this one you saw up here in number 2, whereas a positive result like the one we saw over here in number 3 is going to be a line that tips up like the one that's pictured in number 1. All right, let's go ahead and scroll down and take a look at what else we have here. And that's going to imply that we're going to go ahead and take a look at question number 11. In question number 11, it says the table shows the distance Mrs. Long had traveled as she went to the beach. Use the data to make a graph, find the slope of the line, and explain what it shows. So this is a lot like the question we saw in our notes here. I want to go ahead and start off. We're going to go ahead and graph this table here. Now, the problem is this table is not x's and y's, but as you can see down here, they did change our x-axis into reading time. So these are going to be my x values. And they changed the y distance here, the y-axis into miles. So here I'm going to change those into y's. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and graph my points, my times, and my distances on the coordinate grid. As you can see, this line is set up to go by 2's, and this one is as well, because I know when I get over here, that's the 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Makes good sense. So 8, 6, here's my first one. So I'm going to go 8 on the timeline and 6 on the miles line and find where those meet. And there's 8, 6. 12, 9 is my next one. So I'm going to go over to 12 on the timeline and up to 9 on the miles line. Now realize this is 8, this is 10, so I'm going to be halfway in between here. That's right there. 16, 12, I'm going to go over to 16 on the timeline and up to 12 on the miles line, and those two are going to meet right here. And the last one, 20, 15, so that's all the way over to 20 on the timeline. Realize 15 is not a grid marker here, but this would be 12, this would be 14, this would be 16. Halfway between 14 and 16 is 15, which is this one right there. And so that will complete my line. All right, so now we want to go ahead and find the slope of the line that connects those points, this line here. I'm going to go ahead and go from this point here over to this point here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because they are on grid markers. Those other 2 points are not entirely on even grid markers. They are for the x, but not necessarily so for the y here. So as I find my rise and my run of the line that goes through those 2 points there, I'm going to have to go from here to here. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 jumps, but remember each jump is actually equal to 2, so I've gone up 6 jumps, and then I'm going to the right 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but again, each jump represents 2, so that's really a change in 8. So the slope here is 6 over 8, which will answer this question here where it's asking me to find the slope. All right, so what does the slope of 6/8 mean? Or if you want to reduce it, we can reduce it down to 3 over 4. Well, remember, the y numbers represent the distance. So 3 is a distance, or miles. And this 4 numbers from the x's, which we've now equated to time. Well, if we put all that into context now, that means for every 3 miles traveled, we're going to spend 4 minutes doing that traveling, right? Because again, 3 miles, change in the y values, y numbers were miles, 4 for the time, and the time was in minutes. When we reduced that, we got 3 over 4. We put those in context of what they are. 3 miles traveled happens every 4 minutes.